Since Power Rangers was created, it was directed towards a children's audience, and when Sabans had the idea of adapting Super Sentai, it was always thinking of a children's series. This first adaptation began in 1993, and in those times, there were no good series or movies of superheroes. The reality is that in these modern times is that we have good superhero movies or series, because in the 90s there were very few fans for this kind of project. The biggest audience for superhero movies or series were children, and that is why at that time it was logical to direct Power Rangers towards a child audience. After many years, things have changed, and superhero movies or series are the most popular now. Before, everybody rejected people who liked comics, superheroes, and all these fantasy stories, but now everybody wants to be inside that culture. On top of that, kids have other interests, and that's why series like Power Rangers have declined. If the children's audience is no longer very interested in watching superheroes, and adults are now the ones who are more interested in all these fantasy universes, then the most logical thing is that production should be aimed at the adult audience. The dilemma we have with this is that Power Rangers has always been a children's series, and making this radical change can be difficult. There are many parents who are not attentive to what their children watch on television and could be confused. This is why the question should be, how dark should Power Rangers be in the reboot? We had previously talked about the new producer and the new writer of the reboot being people who have created very dark stories in their past projects, so possibly this is the style they are going to give to Power Rangers. In addition to this, according to information on the internet, it is possible that the reboot is going to be rated 14+. This means that it has the possibility of including such revealing content that I can't even mention here on YouTube because they may demonetize the video. Just because the series has this rating doesn't mean they are going to necessarily include all this stuff, but with a rating like this they have the permission to be able to do so. As we all know, the 2017 movie was also darker than the TV series, but this movie had a rating of PG-13. Despite this, the reality is that the movie did not have such shocking scenes for children's audiences, although it is obviously not suitable for children. I think the darkness that Rita had would be very scary for child audiences, and the demise of the Blue Ranger was also a pretty shocking moment because of the way it all happened. Should Power Rangers stay somewhere in the middle? Perhaps what the franchise needs to do is to change some aspects so that adults can enjoy the series better, but at the same time children's audiences can also enjoy it. This is one of the three possibilities that Power Rangers has, since the reality is that it cannot remain as a series that is aimed only at a child audience. With this option of providing series suitable for all ages, but with deeper stories, without silly comedy and with more serious villains, it can be a great way for Power Rangers. A great example of this was Cosmic Fury, in which they worked out a better story with all the episodes connected. It had very little silly comedy, and the only thing it lacked was the villains being a bit more serious. There are also seasons like RPM that have had a lot of drama, dark stories, and adults can enjoy better. We don't know if this is the best option since this style is still a bit childish, so let's talk about the second option and analyze if this could be the definitive option for the future of the franchise. The next option is to create series and movies for a teenage audience. In this category, the franchise could create series that are a bit more violent and at the same time a bit darker. They could also create darker villains since teenagers can understand this style more. Even many like this type of villains, and I think the best example was the 1995 movie. The rating of this movie was PG, which means that it is aimed for a teenage audience, and it can have more shocking scenes than the typical children's shows. In this movie we had a pretty dark villain, but he never lost his good sense of humor, and at the same time he was quite violent. We also had characters that showed a little more skin, and that changes the classification quite a bit. This movie is still #1 for all the fans, and it is very likely that this is due to its rating. In this movie we had everything we needed for teenagers to enjoy it, but at the same time for adults to enjoy it as well. Because it is not a film aimed at a child audience, they were able to spend time on the important things and not on the scenes for children. The third option is to create series and movies for adults only, which could drastically change the franchise. This would be the most radical option, but at the same time the riskiest path, as it is the only path they have never explored before. As I said earlier, the 2017 movie was aimed at 13+, but the reality is that this movie was not that violent. Right now, R-rated movies are becoming trendy, and these productions include a lot of violence. They also include blood, very dark themes, and the comedy is not suitable for sensitive people. Obviously, Power Rangers shouldn't rise to that level, but there are some things it could borrow from movies with that rating. With a rating that is aimed at adults only, then they could create villains that are extremely dark, violent, and instill a lot of fear in the audience. This would cause us to be able to see the Rangers in truly difficult situations with a lot of danger. The best example of this classification was the short film they posted on YouTube several years ago, in which some Rangers died. There was a lot of blood, extreme violence, and the story was very dark. When this short film was published, it went viral as many fans of the franchise liked it, but the most incredible thing is that many people who were not Power Rangers fans were very interested in seeing the Rangers in this style. This is because these days there are a lot of superhero fans, but the style they are looking for is completely adult series or movies with extreme violence, deep stories, and truly terrifying villains. We don't know if Power Rangers is ready for such a radical change, and the franchise should be prepared to lose many fans, but at the same time gain new fans. This would be an audience shift, and in that move is where the real risk lies. If the new audience manages to accept the new version of Power Rangers without thinking that it is a children's series and that it is now truly dark, then the franchise might have a chance to survive in this classification. The problem with this position is that the fans are more demanding, and any bad move could lead the franchise to failure. Write in the comments your opinion on what rating the reboot of the franchise should have. Like this video and subscribe to keep learning more about Power Rangers.